There has never been a phenomenon quite like it in the history of film, and it all came from the mind of one man, George Lucas. Star Wars was a sci-fi space fantasy inspired by the serials of yesteryear that hit a nerve with the nation in 1977 and launched the most successful series of movies ever. 20 years later, the phenomenon repeated itself. Fans waited in line months ahead of time in order to be among the first to see The Phantom Menace, the first of the Star Wars prequels. During the next hour, we'll look more closely at the incredible success of Star Wars and its sequels. We'll explore the inspirations for the original film and also look at the movies influenced by Star Wars. We'll see interviews with cast members from the original series and the prequel.
Always wanted to do that.
Of the imagination of the other Star Wars.
Hey, George.
And take a peek at the merchandising spawned by the films. We'll compare Star Wars to Star Trek and look at how Lucas's visions fit into the history of science fiction. And we'll take a front row seat as The Phantom Menace hits theaters as one of the most anticipated movies ever. So keep those lightsabers lit as we meet the stars of Star Wars. Audiences were surprised when they learned that Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi were actually chapters 4, 5, and 6 in a much longer story that included prequels and even more sequels. As the years passed, they wondered if George Lucas would ever fulfill his promise of bringing those new adventures to the movie screen. Finally, Lucas announced to an eager public that the prequels would be made, filling in the origins of Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. In 1999, the first of those films, The Phantom Menace, aka Star Wars Chapter 1, premiered. Though fans grumbled about the title, they turned out in droves to see the film. In fact, Star Wars fanatics camped out in line to buy tickets to the first shows a month before the tickets actually went on sale.
5 weeks so far, on and off.
That's what they look like now.
No, that sort of fell apart.
I love that you can just whip it out.
The anticipation and excitement surrounding the film had never been seen before.
There was a heightened sense of, especially because where we shot it in Leavesden in London, there was a very tight, strict security policy because we didn't want people in there with cameras, and because we wanted to keep the filming not so much a secret, but the story a secret, so that fans and audiences wouldn't be spoiled.
The actors played a very small part in this movie. I mean, the artists from pre-production designers to you know, the makeup and the hair and the costumes and the sets and then post-production, obviously, who did all these amazing computer-generated effects. Where, I mean, the actors played a very small part, and in that it was cool because it was a really big community, but it was a very different, you know, dynamic on the set.
Merchandising for the film kicked in weeks before the actual opening in one of the biggest marketing campaigns ever. Fans went crazy buying up the new toys and books. Some even camped out in line outside toy stores the night before the new merchandise was to be released. Items flew off the shelves, and many stores sold out their Star Wars merchandise on the first day.
I got into collecting Star Wars really young. I was about 8 or 9 when the movie came out, and me and my friends, we had all the toys and all the dolls and ships and play sets. And a lot of the memorabilia is now focused on those same items that were original items available in 1977. The original toy line for Star Wars was the most produced toy line of all time. These are miscellaneous figures from 1977 to 1983. Star Wars Empire and Return of the Jedi figures. A complete collection of all the original run toys might cost you between $10,000 and $20,000 might be my guess. I still have a lot of my own toys, plus I have a whole store full of a lot more. We have Millennium Falcons, TIE fighters, X-Wing fighters flying around here. You gotta stay low, sometimes they'll get the best of you around here, you know. Right here on the second shelf is a Darth Vader's TIE fighter, which is the dark craft right here. That was the craft that obviously Darth Vader flew in. Right up here on the top shelf, we have a few of the Darth Maul action figures. Darth Maul is the hot new character right now, and of course the hot new action figure. That over here would be the Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker showpiece figure. When the re-release of the films came out in 1997, they passed out a toy to the crowd in the opening audience. This was that figure. This figure debuted that afternoon. Limited. This is an Imperial AT-AT Walker, armored terrain, armored transport. You put your little guys in there. Pilots go in there. And then you battle.
Luke, you do not yet know your powers on the dark side. Come with me and we will take the Emperor down. He has foreseen it.
It definitely was the movie of the year, movie of the decade, and possibly movie of the century.
The Star Wars craze never really died out. It just quieted down through the late 80s and early 90s. Other trends and fads took over as the focal point of the public's interests. In the late 90s, George Lucas decided to revisit the Star Wars trilogy and use the advances in special effects technology to digitally clean up some of the scenes. The trilogy was then re-released to theaters. Lucas and company were unsure whether or not this ploy would be successful. They felt they were taking a huge gamble.
When we saw that it was going to be 20 years, this was about 2 years ago, a lot of discussion went on about how we're going to mark the moment, how we're going to celebrate it. It was primarily for the fans, the loyal Star Wars fans and everything. So we wanted to do something to say, it's 20 years and let's celebrate. The idea came up to reissue the films, which at the time was kind of an adventurous idea, because nobody's ever released a film after it's been on video and on TV. But I convinced everybody that this film was meant to be seen on the big screen. It was designed for that. It works the best when it overwhelms you. Yeah. It doesn't really work that well when you overwhelm it. It's a film designed to be big. And I said it'd be great if there would be this whole new generation and all the fans got a chance to see it the way it was meant to be seen.
The premiere of the Star Wars Special Edition brought out big-name celebrities, along with cast members.
Hold on the microphone. Wow. What's it like to still have your film be such a big hit and have people recognize you from a film?
It's just hard to believe. We didn't have a premiere the first time around, but it's such a great, we did. We just opened in, I think, 35 theaters.
Well, there's a fascination, I think, with evil that is everyone likes the big bad wolf.
Yeah. Or the Wicked Witch and the Wizard of Oz.
That's right. I mean, it's a combination of fascination and horror, because, and I think, Darth Vader now enters the ranks of just classic screen villains.
This is a chance for film lovers to see the film the way it should be seen, in a big theater with proper sound, like the way they released Vertigo, or we saw Lawrence of Arabia. You can't get it all on video, even on a big screen.
What's it going to be like for you looking at you?
It'll be like looking through my old high school yearbook. Did you see it already? No, I haven't seen it since it was first in the theaters. It's the first time I've seen it in 20 years.
It's amazing, meeting, all the people together.
Oh, it's great to see Carrie again. I know Harrison tried to make it, but as usual, I think he's the busiest actor in the world.
What's the most
this 20 years later.
It's astonishing. It's the public that discovered the film. It's the public that's kept it alive in their hearts and minds. It's just a thrill. It's like being a part of the Wizard of Oz or some timeless classic that'll go on, giving people pleasure. What's wrong with that?
What are you expecting to see today?
Sparks and fireworks, hopefully.
Yeah, I will.
Hi, Mr. Lucas. Mike Stroud with Fox International. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What's your feelings when you get out of your car and you look and you see 20 years later the type of turnout?
I think it's great. It's amazing. We expected this to be a smaller thing than it was when we decided to reissue the films, but there's been a lot of fan enthusiasm, a lot of people really interested in seeing the film the way it should be seen on the big screen.
Did you, when you first started doing this, did you have any idea it would become as large as it has?
Never in a million years.
What can people expect new from this one? What are we going to see?
There's a new scene with Han Solo and Jabba the Hutt. There's a new entrance into Mos Eisley, which makes it more than a little village, but makes it an actual city. and lots of little improvements with the battle scenes at the end and that sort of stuff.
Now, what's the future for the Star Wars epics?
Well, I'm working on 3 more films now, so they'll start coming out in 1999.
And are we going to see you direct?
Pardon?
Are we going to see you direct?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Now, this is a thrill. I think everybody's thrilled.
Well, thank you. Congratulations.
George, Mr. Lucas, I'm Mark Zolmeyer, German
Hi.
TV. You have millions of fans in Germany for Star Wars, and they're excited about this to bring it back to the movies. There's one funny story. How did you get Harrison Ford for the first part?
Well, he had worked for me in American Graffiti, and he was actually doing some carpentry where we were doing our screen test.
I was alternating between acting jobs and carpentry jobs.
So I sort of prompted him to help me do the screen test, and he ended up getting the part.
My big break, if you will, didn't come until Star Wars.
Better than everybody else. So
Yeah, definitely.
Could you do me a big favor?
Very well. Jeff, could you move this way so we can get you out of the sun? I came out to get some sun. Okay. The obvious question is, what's your favorite character? Who's your favorite character? Probably Han Solo, I imagine. Darth Vader's pretty cool, too. Gary Busey! You saw this 20 years ago. Yes. Why are you coming back to it? For the little ones. And to share it again. You also
certainly have a huge TV show now.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Gary Busey still over there?
Star Wars is a timeless movie that will last beyond forever. It's from the imagination of a human being regarding the universe, space, and what goes beyond. And this is the beauty of this business. When a great picture or statement or project comes out that invokes everyone's hope, humanness, and love, and curiosity, that's what it's all about. That's why we're here. That's why it's so exciting. George Lucas has a very unique and preciously different concept on visions and stories. So he's going to give us something today that's going to be well worth it and more so.
The canteen scene, the opening. Would you ever think 20 years ago this film would be still filling theaters?
No, I didn't, but you know, it's not surprising because this movie really is sort of a film for all seasons.
What do you think the mystique of this film is?
You know, if I knew that, you know, I could probably, you know, market it and sell it. That's a terrific question, but I don't think anybody has the answer. My kids told me they wanted to see this movie before I even ever knew it was going to come out again.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think you're the best there ever was. The biggest fan.
Did you see the movie the first time?
Yes, I did. About 10 times.
Nervous. I'm hoping they've digitally redone my hairstyle.
Well, you're going to be doing a lot of things
German
along
TV.
voices in your
How is it today come together after
You're
20
being part of
years?
your part
Is
in
it
the
like an
Christmas
old high school meeting?
Well, since I didn't graduate from high school, that's the closest thing for me. Yes, it is. And look what I got.
Does this movie have still, you know, this impression to you? Is it still exciting to
Yes, but mainly, not mainly, but because I also have a daughter. So it works for her.
Sometimes when I look to old photos, I laugh at me because of my haircut and everything. How is it with you watching this movie?
Well, if anybody should laugh about a haircut, it's me. Now and then. No, then, absolutely. Several haircuts.
The characters are much more developed, the relationships between the characters, you get to know them better.
Yeah.
So it's a much denser film. It's much, there's much more story, new characters introduced, new planets.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Have a nice Saturday.
After the re-release, the total domestic grosses for the film Star Wars totaled $460 million, knocking E.T. from the top spot of all-time box office champs. Empire Strikes Back hit $290 million, and Return of the Jedi came in at $307 million. Star Wars still stands as a wholly original work, a film the likes of which had not been seen before when it first came out, and its influence on movies would be absolutely amazing. The success of the re-release made it clear to Lucas that the public was ready for the promised prequels. A few years later, The Phantom Menace, aka Star Wars Chapter 1, made the scene.
We just got back from London after scoring the new film. We both came back a couple days ago. And we have a 2-hour score. which is longer than anything we've ever done before, I think.
Thank you. To revisit Star Wars after now 20 years is quite a daunting challenge, just to sort of rev up the engines and get it all going again. What amazed me was how quickly it all came back. The score is probably 90% new. There's some quotations of older material in it, references to characters that we know and ones that we suspect we might know. But the predominant volume of it is new music, and it was, as it was in the first case, great fun to have the London Symphony Orchestra and all the assets that George Lucas put behind this to do it. I hope you'll all enjoy it.
When the film first premiered at a charity function, it brought out stars from the film and anxious celebrities waiting to see the new adventure.
Oh, you know, it's a magical, wonderful, ongoing tale. It's got a big, it's got an underdog that keeps on, trying and winning. And it's a great escape, and the characters are charming, and it's funny as well as, action-packed. I like it. I like everything about it.
And have you seen those fashions that Queen Amidala wears?
I've seen them in print, and I can't wait to see it in the movie. I think she looks amazing.
What do you make of the huge hoopla around the movie? The fans camping out for more than a month to see it?
Well, I think it's a lot more worthwhile than some of the other things they could be doing. And it just shows that George has touched a nerve in this country that's a positive kind of thing. The people get together, they share stories about how they watched the first one, how they feel about the next one, the next one, the next one. And it's kind of like a big family, and it works in the spirit of the film.
You're part of it now. You're part of this Star Wars cult.
Yeah, yeah, I am. I haven't felt the effects of that yet. I'm sure I will, though.
Thank you.
The movie is it's on such a big scale. It sort of demands that sort of big excitement. So I don't know. It's like fun. People are celebrating.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
Since when?
Since I saw the first Star Wars with Mark Hamill and Princess Leia and Harrison Ford, what was that, 20 years ago? A long time ago. I saw that movie about 4 or 5 times. I couldn't wait for them to make another one. And I can't believe it's like 20 years later and they're still making Star Wars movies. And especially now with all the new technology, I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be something to see.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I feel really good. Finally, I get to go to the premiere of the film that's taken 4 years to do.
Is it exciting seeing all these people that are so excited about your movie?
Yeah, it's really fun. But I mean, it's just a film.
How big do you think it's going to be?
I really have. It's going to be really big, and a lot of kids are going to enjoy it. And I'm sure that's why they rated it PG,
When you sit there in the theater with all those people watching your film, will there be butterflies in your stomach? Are you nervous about it?
No, I'm not nervous. I've seen the film. This is my 5th time. I know it's going to be very good.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Episode 1 collector cards, so awesome. What's even cooler is my guy's the most powerful.
And the scale of the film, too, is quite phenomenal. I think it even surpasses the scale of the imagination of the other Star Wars, if that's possible. But because they were pretty intense. But this is like, I just saw the film the other 2 nights ago for the first time. So, and there were scenes in it that I truly thought, my gosh.
I think that's the real appeal of this film. It's really entertaining, and it's beautiful visually. It's so amazing to look at, and it's really nothing like you've ever seen on screen before.
A lot of people tend to view George as this very serious and dour kind of personality because they see him, but they also need to understand that George created this world, and he created this very fanciful and very fantastic and very funny and slapstick kind of world too.
Yeah,
I mean, the characters that do those Three Stooges like things came out of George's mind. So he has this fantastic sense of humor and this great childlike sense of fantasy that comes through all this stuff. And he's a master.
I don't know if audiences will realize it as much as the people who worked on it realized it, because we know that before these computer artists, you know, started on this, there was nothing. I mean, it was us in front of a blue screen, is us in front of a blue sheet, and now it is unbelievable, and it's so realistic that I don't even know if people will appreciate it as something man-made.
For years and years, I wished I could be in a movie like this, and I kind of semi-campaigned for the job, and I got it. And the enormity of what this means doesn't quite hit you until you show up. So I kind of show up, and I get to the studio in London, and I walk into my dressing room, and you know, there's my Jedi costume.
The film was finally released to the general public at 12:01 a.m. on Wednesday, May 19, 1999, prompting workers all over the nation to call in sick. Employers dubbed the epidemic the Phantom Flu. Lines formed around the block, and The Phantom Menace was an immediate hit. The film made $61.8 million its first weekend. Its 5-day total was a whopping $102.7 million, which set a record for 5-day box office grosses. The Phantom Menace was definitely causing high spirits. Now, George Lucas is hard at work creating the next installment in the exciting story of Star Wars. Star Wars: The Phantom Menace came at an exciting time in the history of the world. 1999 saw not only the turn of the century, but the dawning of a new millennium. In the world of modern movie making and special effects, George Lucas stands supreme. But if you turn back the clock to 1899, you'll find another George reigning as king of film fantasy and effects. George Méliès turned his back on the family shoemaking business to pursue a more creative career. After a failed attempt to be a cartoonist, he turned to his hobby of stage magic and quickly became renowned for his feats of legerdemain. Méliès was intrigued by the new invention of moving picture shows being pioneered by the Lumiere brothers. George tried to buy a camera, but was refused, so he built one of his own. Méliès began to film his stage magic using the new effects he was discovering. His films became incredibly successful, and the public demanded more. George built his own movie studio where he experimented with other optical effects. By combining his magic theater with its trapdoors, moving panels, and scrim curtains, with a standard photographer's setup that included glass walls and ceilings, Méliès filmed over 500 shorts and became the father of special effects. Naturally, George worked mostly in the realms of fantasy and science fiction, since the effects lent themselves best to stories of an imaginative nature. He was among the first to use elaborate makeup and costumes. He also pioneered the use of dissolves, split-screen processes, animation, model work, and miniatures. He laid the groundwork for everything that was to come in the field of special effects. Influenced by Jules Verne, Méliès made such films as the famous Trip to the Moon, with its whimsical image of a rocket lodging itself in the moon's eye. Unfortunately, Méliès could not keep up with the advances in cinema, and his films fell out of favor. His film company went bankrupt, but he continued to perform as a magician and comedian on the stage. A brief revival of his films occurred in the late 20s when Méliès was discovered selling toys and brought back into the public eye. He retired with a small pension to a rest home near Orly and died at the age of 77 in 1938. His influence is still felt today. 100 years later, the career of George Lucas seems to be a parallel to that of Méliès. Writer, director, and producer, Lucas has revolutionized the film industry and the world of special effects. He made THX 1138 in 1970 and American Graffiti in 1973 before creating Star Wars in 1977. That film broke all box office records and earned 7 Academy Awards. He followed Star Wars with 2 sequels and then joined Steven Spielberg to create the successful Indiana Jones series. He had created his own company, Lucasfilm, in 1971, which grew and branched out as his films became more and more profitable. One branch, Lucas Digital, includes Industrial Light and Magic and Skywalker Sound. Both continue to make advances in visual and audio effects while offering post-production facilities to entertainment industries. Their effect on the world of film cannot be underestimated.
Well, I don't know whether it's going to be the biggest hit of the, what everybody's saying, but I think it'll do very well. And I'm that's the amount of pressure I feel. So it'll do fine, it'll do well, and and I'm already starting to write the next one. So I'm sort of in the middle of. I'm not going to come out of this for years.
Are you proud of the film?
Yeah, I'm very happy with the way it's turned out.
And it was what you expected, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, it's an evolving thing, so it surprised me in a lot of ways, but I'm very happy with it.
Sounds great.
Star Wars is a simple story of good versus evil set in a galaxy far, far away. Creator George Lucas followed the tradition of classic space fantasy when he developed his story, but the influences on him and the film also go beyond the confines of the science fiction genre. Lucas's main inspiration, of course, were the serials of the 30s. These films were made in installments or chapters that usually ran about 15 minutes each. They were shown as supplements to the main feature film alongside cartoons and newsreels. They always ended with a cliffhanger that left the audience wondering how in the world the heroes would get out of the predicament they were in. This brought the audience back week after week until the story was resolved. A typical serial lasted anywhere from 12 to 15 chapters. Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon. Both were based on popular newspaper comic strips that took place in the future. Buck Rogers was an astronaut who was accidentally put in suspended animation and woke up far in the future. There he defeats space racketeers.
Is it true that you are revolutionaries?
In a sense, I suppose we are. If it's revolutionary to protest against brutality.
I have had enough.
Buster Crabbe played Buck, and Flash Gordon. Flash was a Yale athlete who wound up rocketing off Earth for adventures in space. He often wound up confronting the evil Ming the Merciless, ruler of the planet Mongo. It was Flash Gordon who was the biggest influence on George Lucas. Seeing Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe on television as a child made a strong impression on him. In fact, Star Wars was originally conceived as a Flash Gordon adventure. Other general influences include Joseph Campbell's studies in mythology and The Hero of a Thousand Faces, and the works of author Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Doc, we're heading straight into the beam.
The Wizard of Oz, the classic 1939 musical which has entertained generations, also influenced Lucas. Thematically, Luke Skywalker searches for something that is inside him all along, the power to use the Force. Dorothy also searches for something that is inside her, a way home. Upon looking back at the characters of both films, resemblances can be noticed. The motley crew of Princess Leia, Han Solo, C-3PO, and Chewbacca seem to match Dorothy, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion. And perhaps R2-D2 is a robotic version of Toto.
We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. We hear he is the Wizard of Wiz, if ever a Wiz there was. If ever a Wiz there was, the Wizard of Oz is one because.
Chewbacca also bears resemblance to the werewolves, gorillas, and abominable snowmen who have long been a staple in horror films. The Western genre had an effect on the film, as did the samurai pictures popularized by Japanese director Akira Kurosawa. In fact, the characters of C-3PO and R2-D2 are said to be inspired by characters from The Hidden Fortress. Star Wars in general is an amalgamation of various sources with specific scenes or devices reminiscent of past works. The lightsaber had an ancestor on the Croft television series Far Out Space Nuts. Star Chuck McCann has said he saw Lucas on the set. The scene where Luke returns to the burnt-out shell of his home and finds his family dead is an allusion to an early scene in the Western classic The Searchers. The battle sequences between TIE and X-Wing fighters were said to have been inspired and based on both filmed newsreels of World War II air battles and the aerial warfare sequences of the film Flying Tigers. Yoda's face is said to have been based on either Pulitzer Prize-winning author Theodore White or Albert Einstein, perhaps a combination of both. The awarding of medals to the heroes in Star Wars again harkens back to the characters in The Wizard of Oz receiving prizes from the wizard. The Phantom Menace also has an underwater city, which is reminiscent of the serial The Undersea Kingdom. A pod race that young Anakin Skywalker participates in takes inspiration from the famous chariot race in Ben-Hur. Two of the most popular characters in the Star Wars films are the two robots, or droids, to use the correct Lucas terminology, C-3PO and R2-D2. Although always part of the action, their primary function was to provide comic relief. In fact, the two come off as a comedy team, kind of like a space Laurel and Hardy or Abbott and Costello. C-3PO is the taller golden robot with the stilted style of walking and the whining voice. His character is constantly complaining about the predicaments he is in and fretting about how to get out of them. The look of the droid is clearly based on cinema's first mechanical being, the robot Maria, in Fritz Lang's 1927 silent classic, Metropolis. In the film, the drone workers of a futuristic society began to revolt against the upper classes. They are led by Maria, a beautiful girl who symbolizes freedom from oppression. Actress Brigitte Helm did double duty, playing both Maria and wearing the costume of the robot. Luckily, C-3PO is much more benevolent than the Metropolis robot. He's played by British Shakespearean actor Anthony Daniels.
The first time I ever heard the name George Lucas was when my agent rang up and told me that this man who I'd never heard of was going to make a space film, and he wanted me to play a robot. And I was terribly insulted, and I just said no, I wouldn't even go and meet him. And eventually she made me go and meet him, and that was the beginning of it all, because I really liked him and I liked all his plans. And when I read the script, I found the character that I was being offered, even though he was sort of made of metal, I really liked him too, and he was, for me, the most exciting character in the piece. So that was before I had anything to do with it, and I was very glad to take the part.
The smaller droid, who looks like a cross between a trash can and a jukebox, is R2-D2. Definitely the braver of the two, and quite possibly the smarter, R2 is the only character in the history of movies who can make beeps and boops sound sarcastic. Played by diminutive actor Kenny Baker, R2-D2 quickly became a fan favorite. R2 was most likely based on the robots in the film Silent Running. Although they had no lines, they had a lot of personality.
Meet the almost human drones, amazing companions on a journey beyond the stars.
The man has a full house and he knew it. Now how about that?
George Lucas always likes to give, well, everyone a hard time, but the thing he can do with R2 and 3PO is to really beat them up and sort of pull them apart, as happened to 3PO. Most people, I think, probably realize that the costume is completely solid. Some people get the impression that the face is makeup, that it's a mobile face. And indeed, if you took the mask off, you would find I was doing all the emotions. They're all happening, but there is a mask in front of it. I, for a time, tried doing it just with a blank face. It doesn't work. I'm acting away. The fact that it comes through the mask is because I suppose I'm overacting enough for that to happen.
Robots were nothing new to the world of science fiction when Star Wars first appeared in 1977. From Metropolis on, they were just two in a long line of celluloid mechanical beings, both friendly and dangerous.
In a terrifying orgy of destruction.
When casting the original Star Wars, Lucas and company made the bold move of hiring relatively unknown actors to play the major hero roles. As Luke Skywalker, the pivotal character in the series, Lucas cast Mark Hamill, a young actor who was just starting his career. Hamill appeared in Corvette Summer the year after Star Wars.
Riding. That's my car!
He appeared in both sequels, but today concentrates mostly on voice work for cartoons.
I love them dead, Sailor.
Mark Hamill.
For the role of rogue adventurer Han Solo, Lucas cast Harrison Ford, whom he had previously used in American Graffiti.
I left Chicago when I went to college, when I left to go to college in Wisconsin. And from Wisconsin, I came to Los Angeles to be an actor.
Ford would go on to appear in some of the biggest blockbusters of all time. He would also work with some of the hottest actors in film.
Sure, man. Han Solo, the Millennium Falcon. I was there.
You didn't do any acting, I was going to say, in Chicago, like there have been so many.
I did do some summer stock in Wisconsin just before I left to come to Los Angeles.
Was that the University of Wisconsin?
No, Ripon College.
Oh.
In mid-Wisconsin.
Sure, I've heard of that school. Yeah, But I thought maybe you were one of the Richard Benjamin and Charlton Heston and so many that Richard Kiley, the Northwestern.
Oh, no,
scene
no.
up there, yeah.
No, I never studied, in fact, acting. It was something I picked up a piece at a time.
Carrie Fisher was the daughter of a famous Hollywood couple, Debbie Reynolds and Eddie Fisher. After appearing on stage with her mother, Carrie landed a small but significant role in Shampoo. This helped her be cast as the beautiful and feisty Princess Leia. Fisher later gave up acting to concentrate on her career as a novelist and screenwriter, but Star Wars remained close to her heart. The handsome Billy D. Williams was cast as Lando Calrissian for The Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi. Lando was a suspicious character until he helped the rebels defeat the Empire in the final film.
I met with Kirshner, and he came to my house and we sat down and we talked about a lot of things, and he talked about Lando, and of course when he said Lando Calrissian, I said, okay, that's great, but I'm an actor, and you know, when I'm called on to do certain things, I try to do the best I can. I like Lando because he's charming. I think I'm rather charming. No.
Humble.
No, he's charming, cavalier. He's a bit of a rogue, which is all very interesting. It makes for an interesting character, and it creates surprises. He's unpredictable. You don't know what he's going to do from moment to moment.
The only veteran actor to appear among the heroes in the original trilogy was the one and only Alec Guinness. This respected and versatile British actor played Obi-Wan Kenobi, the wise Jedi Knight who teaches Luke about the Force. Guinness had appeared in classic films as Bridge on the River Kwai, Lawrence of Arabia, and Dr. Zhivago. For The Phantom Menace, Lucas took a different route and cast familiar faces in major roles. Respected actor Liam Neeson was best known for his roles in Darkman, Michael Collins, and the amazing Schindler's List.
It was great that it was episode 1. It wasn't episode 2 or 3, you know, where you had to kind of figure out a backstory. This is where it starts. Especially in this one, because George wanted to, because the Jedi and that Force is, you know, is such a central motif in the 3 Star Wars that we've had, 4, 5, and 6, that George really wanted to show where these Jedi came from and what they were capable of.
Appearing as a member of the Jedi Council is Samuel Jackson, the award-winning star of such films as Pulp Fiction, Jurassic Park, and A Time to Kill.
I had an awesome time doing this film, you know, and I can't wait to do the next one if that's the case.
Young Natalie Portman, who impressed critics and audiences with her work in The Professional, was chosen to portray Queen Amidala, the future mother of Luke and Leia.
I think it's really great for people in general to see a young woman at the helm of such an important in such an important position. She's really smart and cautious and very she's very good. She's a good person, and she doesn't want to involve herself, you know, just impulsively in a war that's gonna hurt people.
The Phantom Menace continued the trend of heavy merchandising. In fact, many stores sold out of their products before the film even opened.
My wife can't figure out why I'm here. I was playing with Star Wars toys when I was a teenager instead of...
What do you do now?
Play with Star Wars toys.
One of the things that really have a lot of meaning to me, and the reason I collect Star Wars figures, and I still do, my mother didn't have much money. She split, they got divorced, my mother and my father, and she got me, those were some of the first figures that I ever got, the Han Solo, the Princess Leia, and with this comic book, actually, you know, it was the little things, playing with my toys, playing with, you know, inside my room was a place that was a safe place, you know, and it's almost like in my closet with the figures, I almost feel the safeness that I felt at that age, and I think that's why I still collect and really still enjoy it.
You seem a lot taller on the big screen.
It all depends on what film you're talking about.
Everybody got that?
As Star Wars became part of Americana, it was only natural for satirists to poke fun at it. And who better to crack the jokes than the one and only Mel Brooks?
I am the keeper of a greater magic. The Force? No. The Schwartz.
Brooks produced, wrote, directed, and starred in Spaceballs.
Spaceballs. They must have high sets on that thing. And what do we got on this thing? A Cuisinart?
Bill Pullman played the Han Solo type hero, Lone Star. John Candy was his furry assistant, Barf. Daphne Zuniga was the princess.
Daughter of Roland, king of the Druids.
Funny. She doesn't look Druish.
Joan Rivers supplied the voice of a female robot that resembled C-3PO.
Or someone's trying to kill us.
Mel Brooks took a dual role as both President Scroob, Brooks spelled backward, and Yogurt, the Yoda-like sage.
Don't make a fuss. I'm just plain yogurt.
Of course, there had to be a villain, and who better than Rick Moranis as the fearful Dark Helmet?
I can't breathe in this thing.
Although not a huge success, due mainly to the fact that it was released too long after the original Star Wars, Spaceballs is still a funny tribute to sci-fi's most enduring film.
Why don't we take a 5-minute break? Spaceballs. The movie. Smoke if you got 'em.
I wasn't privy in those days to understanding what was going on studio-wise or what was happening behind the scenes, but obviously Star Wars had come out and the studio went, whoa, this is a big winner, let's follow up with Buck Rogers.
Buck Rogers in the 25th Century was a 1979 feature film that was popular enough to spin off into a television series, starring Gil Gerard as Buck and Aaron Gray as Wilma Deering.
Captain Rogers, I ordered you to stay out of this. Girl, you need all the help you can get. Now, Captain, let's go home.
The suits, the uniforms, if anybody looks at them, it was like the first of spandex. Well, it has no span in the spandex. So for me, it was like wearing a girdle from head to toe. And I mean, the headaches that I would get because it was just so tight. So there were a lot of things that I was dealing with that the audience doesn't see when they see it on the screen. They go, oh, she looks nice in that pantsuit.
Take this barbarian in for interrogation.
Hey, wait a minute. And I'm going, oh, if only you knew.
In Los Angeles, Star Wars fans waiting in line to see The Phantom Menace were bothered by Star Trek fans who arrived in costume to harass ticket buyers. It added another facet to the ongoing debate between fans over which is better, Star Wars or Star Trek.
They had it on the drawing boards for quite some time, and it kept changing from a movie of the week to on television to a small feature to a larger feature. But I think the advent of Star Wars and Close Encounters and the large grosses there opened everybody's eyes up at Paramount. That's my guess, and they decided to go with a big motion picture. It's now huge motion picture. It's vast in concept and in special effects. It's going to be an enormous picture.
I had done a lot of other science fiction work and enjoyed it. I thought it was a really interesting challenge to play a character from another planet who was half human. Every actor needs a breakthrough role, and that's what Spock was for me. Before I did Star Trek, people would stop me on the street and say, don't I know you from somewhere, or didn't we meet somewhere, or are we related, or did I meet you at a party? And you have to say, no, I'm an actor, and so forth. And, oh, yeah, tell me some of the things you've done, you know. It's that intense identification with this character that people took to their hearts, the character of Spock, that tickled so many people, that delighted so many people, and set so many people's imaginations going. And my identification with that became so strong that people immediately recognized me and still do for that character.
Fans became obsessive over the show and were dubbed Trekkies. Trek merchandise began to appear, and the show's original cast became worldwide superstars.
Hi, Nichelle. How are you? We're from LA. What's happening from Asia?
Okay, thank you.
What's the most exciting thing that you remember from, 31 years of doing the character?
Years. I can't believe it. Probably my first day on shoot when I didn't know what to expect, and all of the wonderful people who greeted me and allowed me to spread my wings. And here we are 31 years later, and Gene Roddenberry's marvelous, wonderful, fantastic dream of what the future could be like. And here we are realizing it, the whole world. So much so, it's as though it only just began. So much so that my fan mail is more now than it was 30 years ago, so I started a new website, uhura.com.
You have a website?
Oh, it's brand new, so I'm really uhura.com.
Now, Chinese New Year is coming up.
Yes.
Would you say, in Chinese,
Yes.
恭喜发财
恭喜发财
to the Asian audience?
恭喜发财 to the Asian audience. Did I do it well?
Oh, you did it so
okay, thank you.
Created by Gene Roddenberry, the series did not do well in its initial run and was soon canceled. But repeats and syndication soon led to the series becoming a cult favorite.
We started the whole thing.
On television, spin-offs from the show, including Star Trek The Next Generation and Star Trek Deep Space Nine, continued the success, turning Star Trek into a franchise to rival Star Wars. Interestingly, both empires stem from the minds of lone individuals, yet both are very different in terms of context. Star Wars presents an evil empire trying to conquer the galaxy. Star Trek offers a future where the Empire is a coalition of peaceful worlds trying to further civilization. Which one is better? In the end, it all depends on your personal preference. Both have been entertainment phenomenons, and both stand as examples of the power of a lone individual's imagination. And both will forever coexist as two sides of the science fiction coin. The debate will always rage on. One debate that has never raged on is which is better, Star Wars or Plan 9 from outer space.
My friend, can your heart stand the shocking facts about grave robbers from outer space?
Our ship should be regenerated. We better get started.
There's really no contest. The two are not alike in any way. Neither are the filmmakers. George Lucas stands as one of the greatest filmmakers to work in the science fiction field. Ed Wood is often acknowledged as one of the worst, though there are those who would disagree.
He was not the world's worst director. I think that he was a guy who was driven and was hungry to release some sort of vision that he had, an artistic vision, and I think he was an important filmmaker.
I loved that man. He was so talented, and if he was only alive today to see what was going on, how many young film writers, producers, would-be producers, associate themselves with him. They say, if he did it, I can do it.
Because there may not have been a John Waters or a Tim Burton or a David Lynch without a renegade like Ed Wood.
Both had an unmatched enthusiasm for their subjects and for the genre, and they both had creative visions which they brought to fruition through any means possible. And in their own way, both have had an effect on the people who watch their films today.
You know, it's an interesting thing when you consider the Earth people who can think are so frightened by those who cannot.
With 4 feature films, television specials, novels, albums, and countless toys and collectibles, the Star Wars empire continues to grow stronger and stronger. Generations of fans have enjoyed the exploits of George Lucas's characters, just as future generations of fans will continue to do so. The second and third installments of the Star Wars series are on the drawing boards. Merchandising continues, and Industrial Light and Magic continues to advance special effects technology. But in the end, perhaps the true stars of Star Wars are the fans themselves, who took the simple story of good versus evil and made it a part of our culture and history. As long as they continue to believe in Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Obi-Wan Kenobi, C-3PO, and all the rest, Star Wars will always be a part of our lives. May the Force be with them and with you.
I actually go home, ride my bike, play games, invite friends over, play practical jokes, my mom.
I'm a 2-shot all the way.
Hey,
and I need to do like a 5-second count when we're done. Okay. How would Anakin Skywalker say goodbye to me?
What? Maybe we should do that at the end of the interview.
We are. We're over.
Oh, we are?
Yeah. I got 30 seconds.
Goodbye.